Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the new season of Divine Connections. Yes. I am so glad to see everyone. I hope you had a wonderful summer. Well, I am your host, Katrina Deal-McCall.
And I am also your host, Sherolynn Eppinger.
So, Sherolynn, let's get right to it. Who do we have on the show this evening?
Well, before I introduce our guest, I want to say that it is a new season. It is a new day. Fresh anointing is coming our way. It is a season of power and prosperity. It is a new season coming for me and for you and for you. And I am so happy that we are here with another season of Divine Connection. And our first guest is Dr. Wanda Coleman. Welcome back, Dr. Coleman. And we're going to be talking to her about some new things that are coming your way by her. So we're so excited to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. It's good to be back.
All right. So we are going to jump right in. Speaking of new beginnings, you have a new bestseller out there for us. I want to say yes. Thank you, Lord. Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes. So we want to know. Well, first, let's start with the title. In Transition, the breaking, the beauty, the blessing of starting over. Now, boy, that's a mouthful right there. So I want to just break this thing down. We got 1 hour to get some little tidbits here and tidbits there. So first, Dr. Coleman, before we jump in, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm Dr. Wanda Coleman. I am an ordained minister. I'm a best-selling author, and I'm also a coach and consultant. I love helping people get to their next. I love helping people learn about the Lord, develop a relationship with Him, but also giving them the tools that they need to serve with purpose and in excellence. So I'm a wife and I'm a mother of 2 adult children, and I'm just happy to be here.
Yes, and we are so happy to have you. What inspired you to write In Transition?
This book is God's book. This was not a book I thought about as my second book. I thought I was going to write a book on tips for associate clergy or something to that nature. And this time around, when I wrote my first book, I was by myself. I wasn't in a writing group. I didn't have a writing coach or anything like that. But this time around, I went that route. I had a writing coach and wrote with a group of people and just started exploring, my audience and who I'm writing to and why am I writing this book? And as I thought about it over the past 5 years, the theme that kept popping up was transition. In the past 5 years, my position was eliminated. And in the past 5 years, I have left my church. In the past 5 years, I have been in between employment. Just recently, I left a job. And so that has been very prevalent. I've experienced death of loved ones and friends. So transition was a theme that was common. And once I settled on that, I just started thinking about, well, what comes with transition? What is special about it? And a lot of times we're in the breaking phase of it for a long time. When God says it's time to go, or when we are shifting from one season to the next, sometimes we get stuck in transition because we're grieving so much and we don't understand God's movement and we're dealing with the uncertainty of it. So that's the breaking. But if we allow God to be God and give Him an opportunity to move in our lives the way He wants to, He will begin to show us that, yes, there's pain in the process, but there's also beauty. There's also growth. There's also maturity. And if you can get to that part, you will get to the blessing of transition.
Let me tell you, you said so much just now, and I got chills because in these last 5 years for me too, I have experienced all of that. And so I was excited to read the book before. Now I'm really excited to start reading the book because I'm just like, 5 years, same here, job, loved ones. But you said it, if you allow God and trust God, He's going to see you all the way through. So I think we can end the show on that note. I got what I came for.
Well, you know what? I actually had to get the book because In Transition, that is my whole story about coming back to Cleveland, Ohio. You mean to tell me, God, you're going to tell me one day to pack up everything and go back to Cleveland? Or are you serious? From 80-degree weather every day, the low crime rate, everything, and you
moving back from Hawaii,
yes,
right?
From Hawaii, and come back to Cleveland. So, but I understand it now, and you know what, you spoke so well about these different stages of transition and what you go through. And with it even being said, so you spoke a little bit about the breaking. So let's just move into a little bit of the beauty.
Okay. Well, the beauty of it for me was seeing that God can use me and my gifts wherever he placed me. Sometimes we get stuck thinking, okay, you moved me, what am I going to do now? I had some place to operate in and utilize my gift. I had people I could utilize my gift with. What am I doing now? And he's like, you're going to do the same thing. You just moved outside the four walls of the church. You're in the marketplace now, and you are still gifted the same. You still bring with you the gift of administration. You still bring with you the gift of teaching. You still bring with you leadership. You still bring all of those things. And guess what? That audience need all of that. They need to know about Jesus too, not necessarily in the way that we're used to it or the way we like to introduce Jesus from a evangelistic perspective. It's a practical way to tell people about Jesus on the job or just by letting your light shine. And that's what he was allowing me to do. He was letting my light shine, getting me to a place where I'm in this toxic environment in the workplace. However, it was in need of leadership. My peers were in need of someone who had some guidance, had some wisdom, and I was in need of some things I needed to grow into. I learned a lot from my coworkers as well. So the beauty of it was understanding that all of that I went through, it didn't break me. As a matter of fact, it set me up to be used in a way that I never thought I could be used in this environment. And people were still able to be empowered, educated, and equipped for service just in another way. So I was still able to walk in my purpose.
I like to call that game day. We prepare. And I think a lot of times we get comfortable in practice being in those four walls. But when it's game day, it might rain, it might be extra hot, it might snow, you might forget some equipment. But you rely on what you were taught, right? And so, like you said, sometimes you have to get out and be used in other avenues because you can get comfortable and be crippled. So I really believe that God strips us and throws us in the wild a lot of times because like, okay, it's game day. Let me see you do everything you've been taught because you've been a little comfortable. And like you said, I love the fact that it is so many people in other places that need just what we have. And once we understand that the plans go with the architect, we can operate anywhere, Yeah. So I love that.
That was a good analogy. It really is. Now, with that, the breaking and the beauty of it all, and then the blessing. That's the part you wait on. Sometimes I want to have that first. A lot of us want to have that first. but we know that it's a process. So tell us a little bit about the blessing of starting over.
The blessing of starting over, I write about it at the end, is where you can rest in Goshen. You can rest in this Goshen. Goshen is this place of fulfillment. It's this place where you have peace. It's this place where you can reveal yourself and say, hey, this is who I am. This is who I am with or without titles. This is how God made me, and be comfortable in who you are. The blessing was one day waking up and understanding you're going about your day and realizing, wow, I'm not crying anymore. I'm not crying about that thing anymore. I'm not wrestling with it. As a matter of fact, I'm at peace and I'm waiting. I'm excited about what God is going to do in my life and what he's doing in my life. I'm excited about the next. And being able to walk unapologetically into it. That's the blessing of starting over. When you get to that place where what you thought was working against you God was actually using it for your good, what you thought was going to take you out, God was just using it as sandpaper to smooth out the rough edges in you. And you can now walk in there in confidence in Christ, knowing that this is where you're supposed to be now. This is my season. This is my next. And this is where I'm supposed to be.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good.
I want to talk about the first chapter. Are you willing to go? And I'll be honest, I want to answer my question. Well, I want to answer that question and say most of us are not.
Right.
And I believe that's why God has to, like for me, I had to get laid off 5 years ago. I had to just go on and get laid off. God was like, you know what? I'm going to have to kick you out to launch you. So that are you willing to go? I want you to break that down a little bit for us and to tie it into understanding that a lot of us is not willing to go, but then you get to a place of the beauty. So what was that moment that you realized, like, I really wasn't willing to go, but I may have had to been forced out?
Oh, you know what? Wow. Are you willing to go? For me personally, no, I was not. God revealed to me as early as 2016 that I had limited time at my church. I knew that eventually I would be moving, but in my mind, I'm like, okay, Lord, you hear God, but you think to yourself, oh no, maybe no. You too, Wanda. And he let me know that, and I try to ignore it. But then when it came time, when he began to let me know, okay, I'm serious about this thing. I'm sitting in my office at the church, and I'm talking to people, and we're talking about moving into the next building, the new building. And he's like, yeah, okay, you're gonna see it, you're gonna serve in it, but you're not gonna stay. And I heard that, right. And I'm thinking to myself, you're trying to ignore what you're hearing, but it hit me one day. And I write about it in the evening service, when I walked into a place where I always felt at home and felt like a stranger. I felt like I wasn't supposed to be there. I was in the sanctuary preparing for the evening service, preparing for the duties that I had to do, whether it was the welcome or whatever it was, the duties. And I felt like I could not catch my breath. I felt like it was cold, and I'm sitting up here like, what's happening here? What's going on? And God was like, in transition. And shortly after that, it was some other things that started to take place. Things that used to flow with ease were not flowing with ease anymore. And it got to a point where I couldn't be comfortable staying because I knew I was being disobedient. I knew God was saying it's time to go. And I was staying in disobedience, and disobedience will put you in places you're not supposed to be. So after a while, I could not take that pressure. That was a lot of press and burden, knowing you walking in disobedience. So I had to be obedient to the voice of God, even if it looked crazy to people, and say, it's been 21 years, but God is saying it's time.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine, because like you said, you working and you establishing and you're at the church. So it's almost like, how could this be disobedient? I'm doing your work.
Right.
But that's something we have to be careful, really listening to his voice, because regardless of when he said it's time, it's time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And not getting comfortable, even those things that that are ordained, and he has planted you there. You mean to tell me you that planted me here, I got roots here, and now you're going to uproot me and move me along? But why? I didn't do anything.
Right. All my stuff is here. All my stuff is here.
And that's the problem. You feel like all your stuff is here, and you no longer have that reliance on God like you need to have.
That's it.
That's good.
That's it.
Right there. Right there.
That's it right there.
Yes.
So I think one of the things that was really bothersome to a degree for me was the fact that, we hear all the time, we walk by faith and not by sight. And, just how, when God tells you to do something, you need to get up and do it, don't care about how it looks, blah, 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 blah. And then when you begin to walk in that thing, when people don't understand it, it's like, you sure you heard right? And I'm thinking to myself, if you practice what you preach from this Bible, if you apply it to your lives, eventually it's going to send you somewhere. Yeah, it's going to change something, because transformation is all about a metamorphosis. It's all about change.
But we don't practice it. I'm sitting here struggling with these two words, rehearsing and practicing. They sound the same. But in this dynamic right now, I think they're different because we rehearse these words, right? They're second nature. Walk by faith. God, wherever I go, if I got to go all by myself, Jesus. But do we practice it? Do we actually exercise and do these things? But no, we rehearse it because it sounds good. And that is why he has to kick us out, push us out, put a rug up underneath us like, oh, really? Well, let's see how you operate now, because you said you would.
Yes.
Right.
And you know what? And even though you can rehearse and recite the same old thing over and over again, but eventually it will get to that point. He will totally take you, get a hold of you. Well, look, and close all those doors and make sure that you can't open them again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have no choice but to practice it. So now now who are you going to rely on? Remember me? So it's a lot of things in that, a lot of awakening in that. But I want to get to chapter 3, because chapter 3, woo, bless my soul, bless my soul. The gift of the pit. The gift of the pit. Dr. Coleman, can you please just give us just a little brief?
The gift of the pit. Well, Joseph, he recognized that he had a gift in prison. He was in a pit. You know, and it's sometimes when we are in these obscure and dark places where we dwell, that we will begin to see that there's something else within us as well. And, you know, Joseph knew that he had dreams. You know, we were introduced to Joseph at the beginning of Genesis 37 with him having a dream. He was about 17 years old. Now, years have passed now, and he's been through some things since that dream. And he's in the pit really because of his dream, because people didn't know how to handle it. But it was in the pit that he began to recognize, hey, not only do I have dreams, God has given me the ability to interpret too. Yeah. And sometimes it's in those places of isolation, when we're in these pit places, these isolated places, that we begin to see that we are gifted, and there's more to us than we even realize. And that's how we begin to tap into our potential. We begin to tap into our potential in the pit. It was in the midst of this transition where I discovered, hey, I can create journals, and there were other things in me that I would not have probably tapped into had I not been in this space. So a lot of things we begin to practice to help us get through, because that's what it was. I was trying things and they became therapeutic, but this was also a gift. It was also something that God wanted me to use to help share and tell people about him. So we find out about those gifts in the pit.
What am I trying to say? I know that in that moment it's darkness and isolation. And I feel like people have to sit with themselves, and that's a scary thing, being in that pit. What else did you discover about yourself in that moment of isolation and darkness?
Having to sit with myself, having to come to the fact that, you know, Wanda, you talk a good game. You can encourage others when it comes to Christ. You can, you know, tell others to do X, Y, and Z when it comes to the word of God. But do you trust God like you say you do? I had to come face to face with that, because each day in my life right now, I got to trust God in a new way. You know, and it's beyond the light bills being paid. It's beyond the mortgage being paid. I have to trust God anew each and every day, because he has, I don't want to say he's taken, well, yeah, to a degree, I have left. I have done those things that I need to do, that he has said to do. And that's a stripping. So when you don't have your comfortable places and your familiar spaces and the people that you used to talking to, when he says, okay, it's time to leave that job and step into the things that I have purposed you to do, and those things don't come with a what you call that, a check at the end of the day, you have to trust God in a new way.
Ooh, that's good. That's so good.
So, I'm sitting in that right now. I feel like this is the most exuberating because it is the purpose, but it is the pit. I love my facility, but this is the scariest thing I have ever had come. It found me. So this is the scariest thing that God has ever placed me in. But I know it is the purpose in which I'm supposed to, because he keeps revealing it. Yeah. And like you said, it is do you really trust me the way that you said? And in these 5 years, I had to be reminded, like, oh, this is for me, because it's so easy to be, I always say, the Scottie Pippen for everybody. But I'm sure being Michael, I'm working on being my Michael Jordan, because that is meaning I have to take the time that what I put out, I'm putting just solely for myself to stand out and not just for everyone else. And that's me and God working alone sometimes. You know?
But you know what, just, you know, the whole book itself is confirmation. And then even your whole walk is confirmation that exactly what you heard from the beginning, that it's time to leave. It's time to elevate you to another thing. You have more to do. There's more in you. Because look at the world today. The whole world is in right. Yeah. The whole world is in transition right now. So how appropriate in this moment. And a lot of people are really just sitting with themselves, just trying to figure out, okay, so what do I do now? I was forced to let go of a lot of things. We're still in the pandemic. So, you know, they had the choice to say, oh no, I can walk away from that. A lot of people haven't had that choice, you know, and they have been thrown in transition. So how appropriate. This book is so appropriate for this time right now. As we cover the gift of the pit, let's go back a little bit to the invitation of the wilderness.
The invitation of the wilderness, that's the place that people don't tell us we're going to be in, right?
Right.
We've left. We done, you know, obey the word of God, you know. We think that, but even in obedience, you find yourself in the wilderness.
Yeah.
Even then, I write about how when I had made the decision, you know, when me and my husband left the church, and you know, I always say I left the location. I didn't leave the body of Christ.
That's good.
I left a location.
Right.
And it was. I have had more transition. I've left jobs too, but this was the most recent and the really the one that was the hardest to do. So you hear me talk about it probably the most. But he said to me when I told him, he was like, "Oh, you about to be in the wilderness," and I got mad. You know, I got mad because I'm thinking to myself, you don't know how hard I toiled over this decision. You know, I don't need nobody talking crazy to me. You know, that's how I took it. I ain't going to be in the wilderness because, you know, I'm doing what God told me to do. And I found myself right there crying in the dark, not knowing what I'm doing.
Right.
And we will have an invitation to the wilderness in transition. There's some things that we're going to mourn. We're going to feel some kind of way over, you know, how we left, because sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, you know, and it's like when things are not the way you want them or not the way you expected, you toil over that. So you're dealing with that in the midst of, in the wilderness. But I also write, it's in the wilderness that we learn common sense. It's in the wilderness where our senses are heightened and our intellectual senses and our 5 senses are heightened. So I believe that in the wilderness, we learn how to have greater discernment when it comes to some things. Because when you think about being on a camping trip or being in the wild, when you by yourself and it's just you got to learn how to be alert because you don't know what's around you. You know, you got to learn how to see what's available to eat, when, what's a good time to hunt, all of these different things you learn, but you learn in a place that you never thought you would be in.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of reminds me of The Color Purple, when she said, all my life, I done had to fight. that moment right there. Oh my gosh. So you mentioned a very key point, that no one wants to go to the wilderness. And when we hear the word wilderness, you get an attitude, because we know too that, hey, all your comfortable things that you used to, all of those, all of those, and guess what? And you ain't gonna have most of the time you ain't gonna have no one around but God. So you're gonna have to trust. You're gonna have to do some new things. So, what was the hardest moment for you in the wilderness?
Ooh. I think for me, the hardest moment or hardest thing for me was trying to see the uncertainty of it. The uncertainty of it bothered me. I realized also during all of this, I'm a control freak to a degree. I like to know, I like to, be able to, I don't like to be surprised. Let me be able to plan as much as I can. And it's not like that. On this journey, God is calling the shots, and he's not going to give you all of the details. So for me, some of the hardest parts for me was the uncertainty. And I'm just reminded of when Jesus was in the wilderness, and he, basically passed all the tests, that, the enemy was trying to throw at him, and the devil left him until an opportune time. When he left out of there, he was full of the Holy Spirit. So it's like, when that time in the wilderness sharpened Jesus to a degree that when he came up out of that thing, he came up out of there so full of power and purpose and confidence in what he was called to do. He was able to walk up in that temple and read from that scroll and roll it up and sit down and let them know, hey, this is fulfilled in your hearing, because I'm who that scroll is referring to. And that's how I feel. Although I was dealing with the uncertainty of it now, then, and that scared me. Now I'm not so scared about it anymore. If God doesn't show me, or if I don't know, I know enough about God and his faithfulness in the wilderness that I know I will be all right.
That's that let go and let God.
Yes.
And again, it brings us back to that when we have to be more reliant on him, because he knows that about us. The word said he knows our frame. So he knows exactly how we're made up. He's like, nah, for where we going, I need you to be a little bit unscrewed, a little relaxed, and allow me to guide you, because in what we've created for ourselves, that's not going to fit in this next dimension. I need you to relax. I need you to loosen up a little bit. And I think, I think that a lot of us understand that about ourselves, but we go back to being comfortable, right? We've gotten comfortable. It's been like this for all these years. And in a way, I feel like when the transition comes, we've already been wanting something different. And you can tell me if it's true for you all or not. Like for me, when I got laid off, I had been wanting to get out that job. I was just afraid. I was just really afraid. But he allowed me to start building my business while I was there. And once the transition happened, it still was hard, because, you got that safety net, but now he prepared something for me to go into. But going back to what I said, a lot of the times I believe that once the transition really kicks off, we've already had desires of something different, desires of more, desires of, okay, I'm comfortable, but what's next in my life? Where can I go from here? And God probably is hearing that. And he's like, okay, you're ready now. Because we've asked the question a few times. I used to sit at my desk like, I got a health degree and I'm sitting here routing trucks and shipments of vacuum cleaners. It was a comfortable job, but this is not my purpose, Lord. What are we doing here? And I'm sure he heard me, So in your chapter 4, it says wrestling to walk differently. The scary moment of it's like sticker shock. Do you feel like you were wanting something different and then got sticker shock once it was like, okay, here we go, we got to do this?
Yes. Okay. All of what you said. Yes, I was in a place where I loved it. I knew it. I was comfortable with it, but I wasn't growing. I had hit a stagnant place, and it was things that God was giving me for ministry that I wouldn't do, or what, I wouldn't put a lot of energy into, because I was putting energy into other things. I was putting energy into the area I oversee, or helping with this or helping with that. And then that'll get off the ground. And then I have to come back and look at something that was incomplete that God had given me to do. So yes, I wanted something different. And then God kind of like called my bluff on it. Do you really want it? When it came up, and we are wrestling to walk differently. Katrina, you just asked about something that was scary. It was the uncertainty, and all transparency too. It was also the fact I couldn't rest on my laurels anymore. We get comfortable resting on prior achievements and things that we've done, and God has so much more for us, but we have to walk into that thing and go through those processes to get it. And it was just getting to a place where, I want that. And he's like, well, do you really? Now he's stripping some things from me where, how you keep trying to introduce or say you're this and you're that, or, somebody asks you who you are or give you a title. I'm at a place now where I don't even know how to operate with the titles anymore, because I feel God is moving some things off me. And yes, I'm Dr. Wanda Coleman in some areas and things like that, but he's letting me know what you did there is going to change, and don't be upset if it's not going to fit nice and neatly into the box you keep trying to put yourself into.
A mother always said, don't put me in no box.
Right. Yeah.
I'm y'all mama, but I'm Kate.
Right.
I'm his wife, but I'm this. I'm that. I'm this. So many layers and dimensions. And my mother, she's so funny. She, in a sense, hate titles. She will say, I respect your works. And respect, she's all about that. But you get so caught up that you can't operate, that you cannot function on to a higher level of capacity because I'm this. Mm-hmm. Don't limit yourself ever for anything. I feel like the title for me, I almost like malfunction. If I'm doing it and know it needs to be done and working on that level, but as soon as you like title me, I'm like, what? I don't know how to do that. Because the expectations I feel like are limiting. Like I can only just be this now. No, yeah, I'm the owner, but I'm about to clean the bathroom, or I'm about to speak to the neighborhood, or bring them in and I'm going to feed them. You know what I'm saying? So I really, I like that a lot. Don't put me in a box. Don't box me up, because there's a lot more to be used of me. It's different layers.
Yes. And I believe that it just teaches me, this whole experience in transition is teaching me to wear things loosely, from the titles to the position, to the location, to wear those things loosely. And don't mishear me. I went through work. I respect the processes that I've gone through to be Reverend Doctor and minister and all of that. Yes, I'm that. But in this season, he's using me as coach. In this season, he's using me as speaker. In this season, he's using me as Wanda. In this season, he's using me as sister girl. So I'm using, some things lightly, taking into consideration and respecting everything that I've gone through. I just feel that in this season of my life, he's using it differently, and that's okay.
That's good.
So good. That is so good. So you mentioned in chapter 5 a defining moment. When you were writing this chapter, what are some defining moments that were a revelation to you?
We're on the same page, but that was my next one too. We were on the same page.
Well, a defining moment for me was being at my place of employment. it's funny, I was there. I got there because my position was eliminated. I applied for many, many positions, was rejected, didn't get that, had to go through a temp agency, all of that to get to this position. And I really walked into that position because we needed the money. I had the skill set for it. We needed the money. And it wasn't what I thought I would be doing, not that it was beneath me or anything. I just thought I wouldn't be doing that. However, I couldn't just sit there and have an attitude about where I was, because it was bringing in a form of income and we needed it. So taking that into consideration, I'm thinking that I was going to leave there. God, you're going to shut that door for me, and I'm going to be in a full-time position in the church. Well, no, God shut the church door and left that door open. So a defining moment for me was learning how to work wholeheartedly where God placed me. That's number one, work wholeheartedly where God placed me. And number two, that's where he began to show my leadership skills to different people. Key people that needed to see them so that open doors could happen for me. There was an open door of opportunity. I recognized that the department needed some training in an area. And I brought this to the attention of my supervisor. And, she was like, well, if you see something, try to put something together. And I did. And I showed it to her, and she was impressed. And it got all the way back to the chair. And they was like, well, can you do this training with the group? And yes, I could. And I did the training, flow with the training. The department loved it. The next thing you know, they're asking me to go to the different locations of the department and train all of the staff. And when it was all said and done, I was being asked, hey, so can you do this again? Because it was well received. So that was a defining moment. Had I just was in a position where I'm just going to work my job, I'm only going to do what they ask me to do.
Yeah.
If I've taken that approach, that door wouldn't have opened. Right. They wouldn't have been able to see something, or I would not have recognized the need for something with that type of attitude. Yeah. So that was a defining moment for me.
That's good.
All things work together for the good.
Yes.
I love how you said wholeheartedly, because it's easy, especially when you feel. I don't think you intend to say this is beneath me, but you have that feeling sometimes, like I've done that. Like,
right.
I feel like I should be up this way, but I love when you say, to allow God to use you, and it pulls you back to like, okay, well, if you put me here, it's a reason, and I'm going to give it my all. Yes. And knowing that all things work together. And I find myself asking God, okay, to be present, right? Being intentional. That's my word that I'm going to keep on carrying. To be intentional, to say, if you have me there, show me why. What am I supposed to be doing in this space? Why do you have me? Even in my own, where I'm like, I'm back to this again, or here, but it's if I fully trust you, like you said, wholeheartedly, revealing to me why am I here, God? So that's a good approach that we all can adapt in so many different avenues, because it's a test. It is a test.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
I wanted to ask too, when you discovered that defining moment, was it also a confirmation of some things that he has shown you, like from the very beginning, when he was already, you was already having dreams, you were already getting all of these things that, hey, you're not going to be at the church that long, you guys are going to be time to go, I'm preparing you, it's time to get unstuck, yeah, I'm moving you along. And even though you was resisting, and then you're up into the defining moment stage, so you had all that time in between. Because usually that's how he works. If he gave it to us all at once, we couldn't even handle it.
That would be way too much.
Right, way too much. And so as you travel this journey, and in that defining moment, She's showing you some things that, okay, the things that you're capable of doing, that there's more to you. But also with that, I find too, there's confirmation of some stuff he told you a long time ago. And if you would have just stayed there, you would not be here to see all these wonderful things that you possess. So what was some of those confirmations in that season that he showed you?
Wow. Some of those confirmations, I was privy to be at the table when some crucial decisions were coming down the pipe for some of the people on the administrative staff. I was a voice at the table for that staff, at a table full of executives and leadership and people who don't necessarily do the job. So they don't necessarily know the pressures of what the people in those positions face. And I believe that I had an opportunity to be a voice, to advocate on their behalf. So that was a confirmation. It was a couple of times there, again, senior leadership, they were having a moment one day, and I walked into the office, or I discerned something. I remember with one person in particular, she was my supervisor. She came in, she said something to me one day. She went back to her office, and I discerned something was wrong. And I went to her office, and I was taking a gamble here because I normally don't do this, but I went to her office and I shut the door and I said, hey, do you mind if I pray with you? And she wholeheartedly received it, accepted it, and I prayed for her. And she just started bawling, not knowing that she was dealing with something specific that day. But she came and we talked afterwards, but I felt like it was times like that where I felt like, okay, God, I'm in the place I'm supposed to be for this season in my life, and not knowing that, I was going to be doing some executive level coaching. Didn't know any of that, but he was having it all fall in place while I was there. So I felt like those were some examples of confirmation that I was where I was supposed to be.
That's good. That's good.
The beauty and the blessing of starting over, you talked in the beginning about rest in Goshen. Have you found that rest and that peace? And what was the moment that you felt like you were there?
Wow. I can say yes. I believe that I am still in a place where Goshen is being revealed, but I am at peace. I am at peace. I'm no longer fretting over anything. I'm no longer in a place where I'm wondering what if and that and the other. I feel real good about my next. I feel I just feel real good about my next. I'm at peace with all that has taken place, and I'm good.
Yeah.
That's good.
You seem more relaxed. Are you more relaxed too? Because you said, I know people like you. Like when you self-said, I like this, that order. I'm the go with the flow person. So I look at y'all like, oh, relax. But when you're talking, it seems like you're like, you know what? I'll just let go. And let God. I'm sure you're still playing, but is it more relaxing in this transition?
It is. It is for me. I am one of those people. I like to have my I's dotted and my T's crossed, and it's not that I. What's the word you use? Relax. In my mind, I am relaxed. This is just me. This is just how I operate. This is it. But truthfully, I am. I'm in a good place. I'm no longer grieving about lost things or the past. I'm no longer in that space where I feel like I misheard God, because you go through stuff like that. God, did I hear you right? And I'm in a good space, and I'm excited. I'm excited about what God is doing.
So with that being said, and you're resting, got your feet up. I'm looking at Goshen like a beach in Hawaii with the palm trees, and you're in your recliner with your feet up, and yeah, you're drinking a nice fruity, something cold, and you're resting in Goshen. So why are you resting
Yes,
in Goshen right now?
I am.
Yes, what is next? Because I can see this this in transition moving into another book. Because yeah, we know resting, it doesn't last for long. God is always up to something.
He is. He is always up to something. God willing, I will be 50 years old September 16th. And I'm excited about the next chapter of my life, the latter half. I believe that there are several books left in me. I am excited to have a class. I will have a online course that I'm working on right now for the book In Transition, the Breaking, the Beauty, and the Blessing. So it's a lot of different things that's coming up, but I believe those are some things that are next for me. I'm trying to stop saying I'm trying my hand. I am walking in entrepreneurship. I have stepped in with both feet, doing coaching and consulting. So those are some things that are next for me.
Nice. I definitely want to be a part of that online course.
Yeah.
So keep me updated for sure.
Yes. I sure will.
Yes.
So where can our audience find your book?
You can find my book on my website at www.wandamcoleman.org or on amazon.com.
Awesome. And you better get it because it is definitely a bestseller.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yes. So we're at that point where we like to leave a word of encouragement. And Dr. Coleman, what would you share with us in this? I want to say, because we're still in transition in a lot of different ways in our life. So what would you encourage us? What words would you leave for us? To stay encouraged, I say.
I would say if you are in transition, trust God's movement, trust the move of it. One of the things that's been sticking with me, especially these past 2 weeks, is giving God the opportunity. You have to give God the opportunity to be God in your life. No more plan Bs. Whatever God has told you to do, step into it and trust that he is leading you. And it says in the word of God, whether you turn to the left or the right, you will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. So trust the voice and trust the way that God is leading you.
That's so good. And Sherolynn, did you have something to add?
I want to end like I began. It's a new season. It's a new day. Fresh anointings coming our way. It is a season of power.
Yes, it is.
I'm going to stop there. It's a season of power because we're moving, but a lot of us are lacking the power. Yeah. So it's a season of power. Find your power and prosperity. Everything will come. Everything you need will come after the fact. But find your power, which we know our power relies in God. And it's a new season that is coming to me, to you, to you, to you, to you. So claim that for yourself as we are in transition.
Yes, we are. Well, Dr. Coleman, we just like to thank you for taking the time to set this new season off with a bang. You have done that. So we thank you once again, and I encourage everyone to get the book. Get the book. It is so worth reading, so worth, and just keep it on your nightstand because this is chapters I go back to just to reconfirm, hey, this is what I'm going through right now. It's okay. I'm not the only one who have been through this. There's other people who have been through this, and there's always a great reward at the end of the tunnel. So yes, we thank you once again. All right. Well,
thank you.
Thank you.